Welcome to the Fishbowl with Jade. Thank you for being here. I don't take your presence lightly because time is something you can never get back. So go ahead, put on your scuba gear because today we're diving deep. Let me ask you something. Are we being seen or are we being rewarded? I came across a post from an influencer who said her followers had plateaued, no growth, no engagement, and she asked a question that a lot of people are quietly thinking but may not say out loud. What do I have to do to get attention? Do I have to resort to nudity? And that question says more about the environment than it does about her. Because now we have to really ask ourselves, are we driven by the wrong things? Are we rewarding substance or are we rewarding shock? From a psychological perspective, human attention is not neutral. We are wired to notice what stands out, what's bold, what's different, what creates an emotional reaction. That includes sexual content, controversy, drama, and messiness, because those things trigger something in the brain. Curiosity pulls us in, comparison keeps us watching, judgment keeps us engaged, and emotion holds our attention longer than logic ever will. And once something triggers emotion, it doesn't just get seen, it gets remembered. Now layer that with reward. Likes, comments, and shares become validation signals, and over time, the brain starts to connect behavior with outcome. So when someone posts something meaningful and it gets ignored, but then sees something provocative go viral, the message becomes clear. This is what gets attention. And that's where the shift begins. Not always because someone wants to change who they are, but because they don't want to feel invisible. Now, socially, this is bigger than the individual. This is about the environment we are all participating in. We live in a culture where visibility equals value, attention equals influence, and engagement equals success. So people aren't just creating anymore, they're performing. And that performance is shaped by what gets rewarded. If the algorithm pushes shock, sex appeal, and controversy, then people begin to feel like that's the price of entry. But here's the contradiction. The same content that gets attention is often the same content people criticize. Someone posts something provocative, it goes viral, and the comments say, "She's thirsty, he's doing too much." This is why social media is a mess. But at the same time, people are still watching, still engaging, still feeding the very thing they claim to dislike. So now the question becomes, are people creating this content or are they responding to what we reward? Because attention is currency and people learn quickly what pays. Now let's take it a step further because this is where it gets real. We're not just talking about attention. We're talking about what happens after the attention. So let's say you decide to do what it takes. You post what gets the likes, the shares, the comments, and it works. The engagement comes, your visibility increases, and now you're being seen. But what happens later? What happens when you decide you want something different for your life? A different career, a different image, a different level of professionalism? Because here's the reality. Social media is not temporary. It's a digital footprint. And what you post today can follow you into spaces you haven't even entered yet. I came across an article about a professional woman who had an OnlyFans account and was fired. And let's be clear, what you do in your personal life is your business, but how you represent a company becomes their business. That's where the line gets drawn. Because some industries, some roles, and some environments have expectations tied to image, reputation, and public perception. So while something may bring attention in one space, it can quietly close doors in another. And this isn't about judgment, it's about alignment. Every decision you make publicly is connected to a version of you that you may not stay in forever. So now the question shifts from, will this get attention today, to, does this align with where I see myself going? Because attention is immediate, but consequences are delayed. And sometimes by the time you feel the impact, the content is already out there. The perception is already formed, and the narrative is no longer yours to control. So, if you're building something beyond social media, a career, a brand, a legacy, then you have to think differently. Not just what works, but what's worth it. Because everything that gets attention does not build longevity, and everything that goes viral does not translate into opportunity. So, before you chase engagement, pause, ask yourself, am I building something that can grow with me or something I might have to explain later? Because evolving is normal, but explaining who you used to be in spaces that require something different, that's where things get complicated. And that's a conversation a lot of people don't think about until it's too late. So let me leave you with this. Attention can introduce you to the world, but it can also introduce a version of you that you may not want to carry forever. So before you do what works, make sure it still works for who you're becoming. Thank you for sitting in the bowl with me. Now let's come back up to the surface. Until next time, stay classy, stay curious, stay ever evolving.